Hello and welcome to Season 13, Episode 2 of Unlimited Opinions. I'm Adam Bishop.
I am Mark Bishop.
We are, of course, reading
Don't
Plato's...
you forget it.
What? That's not something you've never done before.
Go ahead.
We are, of course, reading Plato's Republic, this time starting the actual book itself. Last time we talked about just the introduction from the editor here. But part one, talking about what is justice, these different conceptions of justice from these different figures that Socrates is talking with in this dialogue. I know that you are famously a Republic hater. Did you enjoy the first book, at least?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really start hating it until later.
Oh, good.
When
So
he actually,
our listeners have something to look forward to.
yeah, well, he gets to his, cave analogies and
Mhm.
that kind of stuff in earnest.
Yes.
I'm not, well, I mean, as far as I recall, it's been a long time.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to keep an open mind.
Hmm.
And yeah, this is fine. There's a little bit of sleight of hand in the arguments, as everybody kind of
Hmm.
mentions. As far as his character, Socrates, the narrator, does kind of avoid a couple of the arguments, or play a little loose with them, I think. But yeah, it's fine. Kind of trying to set the stage of what is a concept of justice?
Hmm.
Is it just the old Roman or Greek in this case theory of might makes right type of thing?
Hmm. Right.
By the way, can you hear the little pitter patter footsteps of the
I heard a
animal?
little bit, but I think it might be fine on the recording.
All right, because it's
That
distracting to me, but I'm going to let it happen.
Is that the dog walking around the room?
So for our viewers, it's off camera, off
Hmm.
to the side.
Yeah, all of our viewers who are watching this live.
Oh,
Um,
off, out of view.
there we go. There we go. Do you want to just
Why
get
does
into...
can
Yes.
you explain to me? Oh,
Yes.
she's brought an old T-shirt to me. Now
Oh, good.
she's nosing me.
Good. That won't be
Uh,
distracting at all for you.
well, only when she's also grunting. Can you hear her
Oh
grunting?
my gosh. Yeah, that's terrible.
I'm just gonna let it happen. Let our viewers enjoy the show.
Good. Nice
Um,
background for us.
yeah. So, can you answer a question for me, which
I
I
can
probably
try.
could have answered myself if I would have bothered to Google it?
Hmm.
This begins on 327A.
Yes.
What does that mean?
That's from the documents that we have containing Plato's works. So in the compendium of whenever it was, the oldest set of the complete, works of Plato, those are the line numbers for these, the line and section numbers. So this is 327A. I think it might have been talked about, maybe not in this introduction, but it might have been the Loeb introduction about our numbering system and why they're in the order that they are in the documents that we have them. This is just the standard numbering system based on one of the codexes that we have of Plato. So, and anytime you're talking about, Plato or Aristotle or these other people, you'll see line numbers like that. Similar things with other ancient writers, depending on, what we have from them, if there's good documents for what they are. But those will be universal across, editions of Plato's Republic. So if you want to refer to a line,
Yeah,
you can refer to the line itself rather than the page number, which will be different based on our edition and other editions.
I guess it helps when you have different translations. You can kind of
Right.
compare the line. Okay, very
Yeah,
good. Thank you for
exactly.
that
Exactly.
explanation. I expected it was something of that sort,
Hmm.
but I
Yes.
appreciate you. Now I want to know what happened for 326.
I think that's a different work, a different
Oh,
dialogue. That's
I
before
feel
this one. I don't know. I don't know which one's directly before it in the
like
numbering system.
missing out. I
We
should have
could
read
we
those.
could read all of Plato if you want. Just have a very, very long season.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Where
Um,
do you want to start? Do you want to go into the arguments, or do you want to summarize them, or do you want what do
I
you
mean,
want?
I really like.
It's different
Mhm.
because it's not just explaining a belief or
Yes.
explaining a concept. It's a debate.
Hmm.
I don't think it'd be really productive for us to just kind of summarize the debate. Does that make sense? I mean, I
Hmm.
guess we have to at least describe it,
Right.
but I don't know how we're going to do this season.
Yeah. Well,
You can
we'll
tell
figure it
me.
out as we go. I
Well,
do
that's
really
how I do
like.
everything.
Exactly.
I'm a man of deadlines, pushing
Mhm.
right up to them and
Mhm.
then hurrying up and doing things.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say the first thing I was going to say is I think it's really interesting how this starts, right? So you think about the Republic as this, masterful work on justice and what the ideal society is, and it literally just starts with Socrates telling a story. The first line of the Republic is, "I went down yesterday to the Piraeus with Glaucon, son of Ariston. I wanted to say a prayer to the goddess and also to see what they would make of the festival. This was the first time they were holding it. It's just like completely mundane, like
Mhm.
day-to-day activities of Socrates is taking a trip down to the Piraeus, which is essentially like the port city outside of Athens. Athens' main connection to the sea. And you want to see the end of the festival and see what was going on. You heard it was really great and wanted to see what they were doing with it. And that's how it begins. And it just sort of weaves into this then conversation that he has first with Cephalus, and then Polemarchus, and then some other characters that we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's just such a mundane start to things, and it makes you think, why would Plato write anything in the form of a dialogue, right? And then B, why would this sort of apex, at least of his sort of like middle-aged work, why would it start in such a mundane way? I don't really have a good answer for that. I just think it's a really interesting feature of the Republic.
I agree, and I often wonder how many other books did he write that weren't preserved?
Yeah.
Because if he's writing a whole bunch of these, this
Hmm.
is a very effective way just to convey the ideas in a conversation format,
Hmm.
and um, to explore things in a conversational mode. That part I do really enjoy reading Plato's dialogues. I just had the one the issue with
Hmm.
his concept of the pure the great city, that like somehow you can create good people.
Hmm.
Uh, I think that's really my fundamental problem, is that he's trying to create a different human nature, and I think that's probably my biggest uh, opposition to his ultimate theory.
Hmm.
But all of his dialogues are great. I mean,
Yeah.
like the Apology, Crito. I mean, I'm trying to remember what the other
Hmm.
ones were. I enjoyed all of them.
Yeah.
It's only the Republic that I really was just like, but it's longer too.
Yes. Yeah.
The
Very
other
much
ones
so.
are like little short stories.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could read very quickly. The Republic is a work,
Hmm.
and I think I think he's just staying true to form,
Hmm.
and I also think he's drawing the reader in. He wants to entertain and educate at the same time. It's like what's the point of writing something if it's not readable?
Hmm.
It's
Right. Right.
kind of like singing in a vacuum.
Hmm.
Can you? I don't know.
Yeah, right. That's a good question.
Or the tree falls in the forest, that type of thing. Yes,
Right.
it does make a sound.
Right.
Um, the sound is a physical thing, but anyway.
Yes.
Um, so where were we? Yeah. So how do you
Hmm.
want to? I guess you are
Yeah.
already. I'm just delaying you by asking
No,
you how you
that's
do it, and
that's
you're
all right.
doing it.
Yeah, because I mean, then it ends up with him talking to this person, Polemarchus, this resident in Piraeus, and he takes him to his house, and that's where you sort of meet the characters,
Mhm.
his brothers Lysias and Euthydemus, and then Thrasymachus of Chalcedon, who we'll talk about later in this book, who becomes a very important character, and then
Yes.
Polemarchus's father Cephalus as well. And it starts with this sort of discussion of old age, interestingly too, where he's talking with Cephalus, this old man talking about whether it's better to be old, whether it's better to be young, controlling the passions and things like that. We just sort of this playful back and forth between the two, and they
By
talk
the
about
way, it's some of the most brilliant stuff he has in this book.
you think so?
100%
Yeah,
true. But before that, I want to mention you talk
sure.
about how it just starts off as just kind of like a scene in the day of.
Hmm.
It was really, I don't know why I find it compelling, where they're walking along after, doing their whatever ceremonial thing. And then the other guy sends a slave to tell him, hey, wait up. Like you can
Hmm.
feel like there's a crowd, almost like, like the Bush Stadium is emptying. And so this guy sends a slave running up ahead to tell Socrates and whoever he's with to hold
Hmm.
up.
Right.
My owner, my
Mhm.
master is on the way. Can you hang out on for a minute?
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like a slice of life of Greek aristocracy.
Right.
I just thought that
Yeah.
was just so
Yeah.
interesting.
It's also interesting that we get Socrates' opinion on the procession, right? In one of those first few
Yeah.
sentences, he says, I must say that I thought the local contribution of the procession was splendid, though the Thracian contingent seemed to show up just as well.
Yeah.
Where he's just like commenting on like, the religious ceremony and what the festival's like. It's just so completely mundane.
Yes.
It's really, really interesting.
Yeah. With the discussion about entering at old age, of course, I have a different view than I did when I first read it, when I was about your age, than I do now that I'm 55. overweight and out of shape. And by the way, as I mentioned before we started this, I forgot about this, and I was about to work out in the basement, and now I have an excuse for not working out today.
Good. I'm glad I could give you an excuse.
But basically, the point is that as you age, you're not as governed by your passions.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's a terrible. I mean, when I was young, I thought, God, that's just depressing.
Hmm.
But there's well, first of all, there's truth in it, because you aren't as I think as emotional. Well, let's talk about men. I mean, I don't know about what the heck happens with
Hmm.
women. I think they're just all over the map their whole lives. No, I don't know that. I don't know if there is a difference for the women on this. But anyway,
Hmm.
so I think
Yeah.
it's. I'll speak as a man. You it's not that you aren't as vibrant in a sense, but like I know this about myself. Um, when I'm angry, I'm like at most 80% angry of what I would have been in my 20s.
Mm.
So like when they talk about uh, he says, I think, well, here's page 4. He says, for I myself find, I guess I can give you, it's right after D,
Hmm.
uh,
328D.
AD. For I myself find that as age blunts one's enjoyment of physical pleasures, one's desire for rational conversation and one's enjoyment of it increase correspondingly. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I don't think it's universally true because I certainly had passion for intellectual pursuits in some ways more when I was younger
Mm.
or more intense, maybe. But I have an appreciation for, um, more rational discussion as opposed to arguing. If that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah. And
And,
what's
and
very similar to what Cicero describes, he has a work called On Old Age,
yeah,
which I think he was relying very much upon, some of what Plato talks about here. And he's, of course, a later author than Plato, writing in the Latin. And from what little I remember about it, this is essentially, the distinction he makes. I mean, I read this, I think, in one of my classics courses in undergrad, the On Old Age from Cicero. He's saying exactly that, where he's like, yeah, you just become, less governed by the passions. You are less, volatile, I guess,
yeah,
in every sense of
right.
the word.
Yeah, and you're not on the hunt
Hmm.
for whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
either for conflict or women.
Hmm.
At least you're not supposed to. If you're on the hunt for women and you're in your 50s, there's probably something not quite right about you.
Yeah. Well, and he also kind of says that too.
Whether you're divorced or not, it's
Right.
like, whether you're a so-called single guy or a married guy. Of course, a married guy should be hunting for women, but
Hmm.
under any age. Um, but some do.
Right.
Um, but in any event, yeah, but yeah, it's like, um, the funny thing about getting older, especially if you're getting a little out of shape, is that the risk of kind of being seduced
Hmm.
while you're a married person drops precipitously.
Well, that's good.
uh, so so once you hit it, that's what what really bothers me. I've had a number of people that are about my age or around that age that have been married for 20 plus years and they get
Hmm.
divorced because one of them's cheating, and I'm thinking, my Lord,
Yeah.
if you got this far, now maybe it had been percolating for a long time. You never
Right.
know what's going on behind scenes, but if you got this far, damn it, can't you just coast to the finish or something?
Right.
I mean, isn't this the downhill?
Hmm.
Because you don't have those kind of. At least maybe it's just me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, he does say,
yeah,
this is on,
not about that. Isn't that a universal thing? He's saying it's universal. It's
yeah.
freaking Socrates or
Yeah.
Plato writing Socrates.
But he does say on 329D, this is from Cephalus as well, where he says, "For if men are sensible and good-tempered, old age is easy enough to bear.
Yeah,
If not, youth as well as age is a burden." Where it's like, well, if you're not sensible, if you're not good-tempered, then you're going to be burdened both in youth and in age. Like it's not necessarily that it will just make you like a decent person, right? If you are not a sensible person, if you're not a good-tempered
yeah,
person, that can still be a problem in old age. But it does tend to sort of, I guess, lower the passions.
yes. Anyway, it's kind of it's just really a weird pre-discussion before they get into anything. So it's
Hmm.
kind of like an introductory discussion where it kind of leads into this argument. You
Hmm.
know, they're like these two older guys are having this discussion and then it kind of segues into this other topic.
Right.
So in that sense, it's kind of like a sitcom or some sort of
Hmm.
little drama.
Yeah,
So
because he asks him, because then the conversation turns like towards Cephalus's wealth. How did he make his money, and things
yeah.
like that. And then I believe it is Cephalus again who then quotes the poet Pindar, where he says, "For I love that passage where he says of the man who has lived a just and God-fearing life, sweet hope, who guides men's wandering purpose, treads at his side, gladdens his heart, and comforts his old age." That if you leave a just life, or if you live a just life, you'll be comforted by hope sort of at every turn, and especially in your old age. It'll tread at your side, it'll gladden your heart and comfort your old age. And then that's when he talks, about wealth being valuable. He says, "For wealth contributes very greatly to one's ability to avoid both unintentional cheating or lying, and the fear that one has left some sacrifice to God unmade or some debt to man unpaid before one dies. Money has many other uses, but taking one thing with another, I reckon that for a reasonable man, this is by no means its least." And that's when we finally start talking about what is just, what is right. Where
Yeah.
Socrates then raises the question, he says, "Well, Cephalus, are we really to say that doing right consists simply and solely in truthfulness and returning anything we have borrowed? Are those not
Mhm.
actions that can be sometimes right and sometimes wrong?" And that is literally just the question that starts the entire discussion of the Republic. That is the discussion of what justice is. Is it just paying back our debts? Is it just being truthful? What is justice? Right? This is the first sort of attempt, I think, at answering the question.
Yeah, and I think the way he leads into it is kind of a natural description of how a conversation could go.
Hmm.
Where the two guys are talking, and then one guy, well, yeah, if you're,
Hmm.
certainly if you're older, you've accumulated some wealth, and
Right.
then he mentions, having more money, it contributes very greatly to one's ability to avoid both unintentionally cheating or lying.
Yeah.
Sure what he means by that, but it certainly you should not be feeling pressure to lie, cheat, or steal
Right.
to buck if you have a lot of money. But it goes back to the other thing, which
Right.
is if you're a liar, cheater, and a thief without money, you're going to be a liar, cheater, and thief with money. I
Yeah.
don't think there's any difference. You just have more of it.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, when we get down to justice and so what is it?
Right.
Is having money make you a better person is
Hmm.
really what they're kind of
Right.
alluding to there. And
Right. And that's when he says he raises really like literally just the classic textbook example of like, well, is it just to always pay your debts? He says if somebody borrowed your axe, or for instance, one borrowed a weapon from a friend who subsequently went out of his mind and then asked for it back, surely it would be generally agreed that one ought not to return it, and that it would not be right to do so, nor to consent to tell the strict truth to a madman. Right. And that's the example that comes up, and again when you talk about
yeah,
justice as giving to each his due. Well, it's like, well, you owe him the axe, right? You borrowed his axe. Do you owe it to him to give the axe back to him if you know that he's insane, is going to kill somebody with it? And of course,
yeah,
Cephalus says, well, no, of course not. And so then Socrates says, well, then of course, there must be, something other than just giving back what is owed. In terms of what justice is. And from that point, then Polemarchus, Cephalus' son, takes over the discussion. He becomes the main interlocutor with Socrates for this next section.
yeah. And I didn't think he really addressed effectively, in my opinion, the difference between what the person is owed,
Hmm.
what the person is due, which are
Yes.
not completely, but very different concepts. Meaning, like especially talking like criminal justice field, uh, somebody may be due a certain punishment,
Hmm.
but it's not that you owe it to them, but it's what's coming due. Does that make sense?
I don't know if I agree with you.
Oh, well, no,
Um,
no. So it's just a different concept. So if I owe you something, I'm going to give you the exact thing back to you. But that doesn't mean that
I
but
see. I see what you're saying.
having
Yeah.
some that you're due for something, you might be due for some comeuppance, which
Yes,
is
I
worse.
see. I see.
So if you like for instance, if you rape a child,
Hmm.
we're going to have you raped by some guy,
Right. Right.
but we may have you executed.
Yes.
That would be your due. So it's not like a pound for a pound or a penny for a penny. It's some concept of a
Hmm.
just result. And so I think it's a little bit more complex
Yeah.
of a concept than what is really admitted to when they get interrupted,
Right.
which is a very effective plot device.
Hmm.
Because I think it's a better concept of justice than the author
Mhm.
initially treats it as.
Yeah. Well,
That
well, I
makes
think he does eventually, I think, defend that traditional idea of justice with essentially those caveats that you're describing. That
right.
Socrates does consent that it is giving to each his due, and that's literally the definition of justice. I think pretty much settled. I mean, that's what Aquinas uses. That's what all the church fathers use. That's what I believe justice to be. Just depends on how you formulate it, what exactly it means to give each his due.
Right. That's
Um,
the devil's in the details.
right, right,
Oh,
exactly. That's
the
right.
devil, yeah,
Um, but
do.
then he it's ridiculous. But then he moves on. When Polemarchus enters the discussion, Cephalus has to leave.
Can I call him
Polemarchus,
Polymarchus? Because that's how I did when I was in my 20s.
if you really really want to,
Like your brother.
let me actually make sure that I have the pronunciation right, where the accent is.
Well, you
Uh,
can set up while I tell a story about your brother who would got in a phase where when he was really little, he'd read books
mhm.
about cars, and he got
It is
excited.
Polemarchus. The accents on the e. Polemarchus.
Polemarchus.
Polemarchus. Yes,
Polemarchus.
Polemarchus.
Anyway, he saw a sports car on the highway. And he,
Mm.
Camaro, Camaro. What are you talking about? Look at that over there. It's a Camaro. Of course, how is he supposed to know? We never talked about
That's
cars
right.
before.
That's right. Well, that's what's
Yeah.
nice about Greek is they mark the accents where the accents are in the words.
Oh,
Yeah.
good to know.
There you go. In case you ever pick up Greek.
Well, maybe I'll do that Duolingo.
Well, they don't have ancient Greek. They have modern Greek on there, which is
Oh,
not the
well, then
same.
I'm not even going to bother.
They have Latin if you want to pick up Latin on Duolingo.
I took Latin in
Yeah.
college, did
Yeah.
not do well.
Mhm. But
And
then,
the whole deadline thing. It's hard to learn Latin in 2 hours before a test.
that would
I
make it difficult.
speak from experience.
Hmm. But then he continues on with the conversation here. And Polemarchus does essentially say that he agrees with the traditional view of justice, of it being right to give every man his due, right? That is sort of the traditional definition of justice. But then, of course, Polemarchus also agrees you should not give the axe back to the madman, right? That's not due to him. And so then he talks about, and essentially the conclusion that he gets to, if I'm remembering correctly, if I'm not going too
Yeah,
far
where you
ahead.
at? Where you at?
Yeah, I'm looking at pages 9 and 10 here.
I'm
Um,
already 13.
all right, we can move ahead to 13. But he essentially goes through this discussion of like what is there's skills to certain things. And I think that's a good distinction set
Okay.
up, sort of philosophically, right? There is an art or a skill in sort of steering a ship, right? There's a right way to steer a ship. And so what they're talking about here is the conclusion that Socrates is trying to get to is that there must be a right way to live justly, right? There
Mm.
has to be some definable, correct way of living justly. If living justly is a skill, is an art, just like any of these other sort of common practices. Um, and then that's when he talks about doing harm and doing good to different people. Where he says, does a just man do harm to anyone? That's the question Socrates asks on 13. It says, oh, yes, he replied, one ought to harm bad men who are enemies. He says, if we harm a horse, do we make it better or worse? Worse. Worse, that is, by the standard of excellence by which we judge horses, not dogs. Essentially saying that there's different standards of excellence for different things, which is a very important point that I think is picked up even better by Aristotle later on about what the standards of excellence are. But what Polemarchus's definition is that justice is doing good to our friends and doing harm to our enemies. That is what he
No
defines.
greater friend, no worse enemy.
Yeah, exactly. Where he says if we're giving to each his due, well, then our friends are due good things and our enemies are due bad things or
Yeah.
are due harm, right? That is how we should treat things. That is sort of the general rule for carrying out the practice of justice.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the general consensus of their society at the
Yeah,
time, although I'm not an
yeah.
expert on it. But I think I think the discussion is not great on this subject because, like he says, just beyond that, he says Socrates is asking, so men, if harmed, must become what's it? What did you see? But is where is that? Um, so men, if harmed, must become more unjust because he says if you harm them, then they suffer and it's
Mm,
bad. And he's making that point, but if you harm a man and it's a just punishment,
hmm.
that doesn't necessarily mean you make them more unjust. If
Right,
you're harming is in the pursuit of justice to basically for them to think better about it before they do it the next time.
right.
And you set societal standards and personal standards based upon that harm.
Hmm.
So it's I think they kind of gave it short shrift.
Hmm.
Didn't really flesh that out because I think harming somebody in a traditional sense, like even
Hmm.
you can make a good argument that like what is it, Indonesia where they cane thieves.
Hmm.
Uh, that's brutal, depending on how hard they hit, strike, and how many times and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But there's an argument to be made that that focuses the mind
Right.
on the inappropriateness
Right.
of the
But then,
conduct. So,
I
I
think
don't
that the
know.
counter is that, well, you're not really harming them in terms of what they should be doing. You're actually doing some good to them, right? In the sense that achieving justice in that is a good, right? And that they
Right.
are owed, that harm, right? But I agree that that's
Right.
that's not really described here in the
Not
dialogue as
explored.
such. Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a sleight of hand there where
Yeah.
Socrates is saying, well, if you harm somebody, then you make it worse.
Right.
If you injure somebody, you make them worse.
Right.
And then he skips that step and says, okay, anytime you harm a person, you make that person worse and then therefore more unjust.
Right. There's another important point, if I can talk about the Greek for a second, where he's talking about the standards of human excellence. Right?
No,
Okay, well, never mind then.
no,
Let's
I'm
move
just
on. No, I'm kidding. But the word there in the Greek is arete, right? Like the best thing, essentially, the human excellence, and that's the word that essentially kind of gets adopted, well, first by Aristotle, as essentially what we translate as virtue. Virtue coming from a Latin word meaning sort of manliness, virtus, in sort of ecclesiastical pronunciation, pronounce the V. But like our, sort of Christian concepts of virtue have a lot of roots, or have their sort of understanding fleshed out with these sort of Greek principles, especially in the Middle Ages with the reception of Aristotle, of like, well, what should people pursue? How do you pursue excellence? How do the virtues assist in pursuing excellence? That's kind of the question that you're already seeing, being formulated by Plato here already. There's another interesting point that I think we'll get to a little bit later, where some people kind of say that Plato predicts the crucifixion of Christ a little bit later. I don't know if you noticed that. Kind of wild. I don't necessarily believe that he actually prophesied the crucifixion. There's a passage later on where he talks about essentially how warped the world is, that the most just man to ever live would be crucified. It's like that's interesting that he came to that conclusion like just through natural reason. But that's a digression, I guess. Because then that's sort of where that topic of conversation ends, where Polemarchus agrees. He says, well, clearly my idea is wrong. It can't just be doing good to your friends and doing harm to your enemies, because in harming others, you are making them worse, right? If we're
yeah,
pursuing justice, justice should make everybody better. And I think there's also kind of a notion in there of, if you were doing harm to somebody else, maybe that also makes you worse a little bit. I
right.
don't know if that's sort of explicitly described in there 100%,
I
but
think
it's
I think it's implied though.
right.
I think that's
Yeah.
what they're really getting at because you want to be a just person, and so
And the
you should
just person should always do good. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, follow a just outcome or a just process. Yeah.
Exactly. And then that's when, Thrasymachus comes into play, and he literally just bursts into the dialogue. You get this description. I think it's really funny, actually. This is on page 16, which is, lines, let's see, in the section 336b for other editions. But he says, while we had been talking, Thrasymachus had often tried to interrupt, but had been prevented by those sitting near him who wanted to hear the argument concluded. But when we paused and I asked my question, he was no longer able to keep quiet, but gathered himself together and sprang on us like a wild beast, as if he wanted to tear us in pieces. Like he's just getting so enraged by this conversation that he's sitting there and people are having to restrain him, like from joining in the conversation. And he finally, erupts onto the scene. And the editor of this edition gives this section the title Thrasymachus and the Rejection of Conventional Morality, where
Yeah.
he's really kind of giving, I think, really a foresight of, what, all of the same problems we're facing today, where Thrasymachus' position is essentially that power makes right, or might makes right, is a lot of what his opinion comes down on. It seems like,
100%.
and that's the exact same, discussion that we have, 2,000 years later, 2,500 years later, after Plato.
I don't know. Is anybody really making that argument
I
now?
think it's being made, but in different ways, in the sense that it is up to the individual to decide for themselves what is right, based on their own will. That's sort of the common morality of whatever is best for you, that is what you ought to pursue. You look, puzzled.
Um, I don't know that that's the same.
I think it's related. I don't think it's necessarily the same. But I think a lot of them have similar roots. They all have the same root of sort of denying that there is some sort of objective morality.
Well, is the result, is the win objective morality or is it subjective morality?
What do you mean?
Well, like might makes right. So that means I conquer, those 10 people making my slaves. Under that theory, I was right.
Yes.
Um, so that's not subjective.
Well, it is.
I guess it's situational,
Yeah.
but it's subjective. It is.
Well,
Uh,
it's literally the rightness of an action lies in the power of the subject to do things, where the
yes,
other view holds that the right is outside of the power of anyone.
correct.
You pursue the right. So I think it is subjective, in that sense.
I think it's situational. I don't think it's subjective.
That's a
Subjective
that's an
means
interesting distinction.
well, subjective means it's like an opinion. It's not. Well, that's my computer doing this to me. It is not the value of it is not is dependent upon the point of view of the person doing it. But if the theory is might makes right, period, then the people that are subjugated, if they also believe that, then they're like, man, I guess I was wrong.
I guess that's true. I mean, I guess it's based on more objective facts of things, but it's
Yeah,
still
that's
denying.
important.
Well, yes, but it's still denying that there would be an objectively right thing to do in a situation. Would it
Yes,
be?
well, it's situational. It's not universal. It's not
Yes.
universal.
Yes.
It's not subjective. It's situational. It's a general principle.
Yes.
The winner is right, and who the winner is and who is right. Therefore, who is right depends on the circumstances. It's on the situation. It's situational. It's universal in a concept.
Hmm.
It's situational in applying it meaningfully to the world, but it's not subjective.
All right. I
Now,
can I can agree with that.
it would be subjective if they're like, well, what do you think? Did I win or not? That's subjective.
Sure. Sure.
But if I'm holding you down with a sword on
Yes.
your throat
Yes.
in this theory, then I am absolutely right.
Yes.
Aha!
Yes.
It's like
I
it's
think
like
I'm using subjective in a very technical sense in that it is part of the subject rather than outside of the subject, where the rightness
oh,
of an action.
fancy pants. Look at that. Huh. Dude, the fancy pants definitions.
Yeah.
Subjective. Well,
Well, that's
it's the subject.
well, that's what I'm saying. Is if the morality is part of the will or the power of the person, then it's not an objective morality. It can be based on objective circumstances, whatever happens. But we can move
What
on.
do you
We can
mean?
move on from
What
this.
do you mean it's not objective? It's 100% objective. It's measurable. Who won? It's a universal concept. It's a
Yes,
clean universal concept that you can apply to every situation.
it is. Let me think of how to phrase this because I think it's true.
Yeah, keep trying, keep trying.
No, but what I'm saying is they would not agree that there is like say there are 10 people over there. Is it right or not for me to conquer them and take them as my slaves?
Well, if
They
I
would say
can, yeah, if I can, absolutely, that makes it
yes,
right.
exactly. But there's no but different systems, more objective systems would say no, it's always wrong.
Yeah, that's not objective.
What do you mean?
What's objective is me testing it. It's like a scientific experiment. Let's find out who's right, buddy boy. Here I come.
That's what I'm saying. That you have to find things out. That there has to be a series of events, and depending on the abilities of different people, in order for you to arrive at justice. What other theories say is that no, things are just or not 100% of the time, and it's always true that it's unjust to take those people as 10 slaves.
Is it really?
I would say so that it's probably unjust to take those people as 10 slaves.
Under every circumstance.
Well, maybe not every circumstance. I could think of
Oh
weird,
no,
very highly specific. Well, that's what I'm saying is that,
sounds subjective to me.
gosh, What I'm saying is that the sort of more objective theory, to use that term, I guess, would say that there is always a right or wrong answer, and that it is,
I think you're trying to say it's more universal,
yeah,
and outside of the factual situation, to have a morality that's not based upon the facts on the ground, and how you adjudicate things physically.
right,
It sounds like what you're saying,
right,
but that doesn't make the might makes right subjective, except for as to how do you allocate
sure,
who is mighty.
I see.
I win.
Well, we'll see. We'll keep going through here. We'll see what happens here.
Let's take a vote.
Yeah, all of our listeners. Yeah.
Our viewers can text us at on Twitter or X,
Mhm.
whatever our call signs are.
Yes. But
At
then
UML amendment
ULMTD opinions, that's right. Um,
Gorg.
yes. But then to turn back to Thrasymachus, what he says is he essentially just calls Socrates out, where he says, "Why don't you just give us an answer? You keep asking these questions, but you don't provide anything yourself."
I did
Which
appreciate that because
Mhm.
That's a big criticism of the dialogues. It's like, well,
Mhm.
why just ask anybody can ask questions?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like Norm Stewart's famous rant about teachers.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's not hard being a teacher. You have all the answers. Anybody can ask questions. God. I need to listen to that again. I was having a
Yeah.
rough week, and
Yeah.
it brightens my day. It's
Yeah.
Norm Stewart, the
Yeah.
teacher, heckler,
This is
on
almost
YouTube.
entirely unrelated.
Norm
Just
Norm Macdonald, not
yeah.
Stewart. Norm Macdonald.
Just talking about, funny things. I showed some of my friends the Knights at White Castle
Oh
video.
yeah,
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. That is absolutely a video everybody should watch.
I'm amazed. Well, you don't watch it, listen to it,
Well,
right?
you listen to it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's on
YouTube.
YouTube as a video. Yeah, yeah. But it's just a
It's
song.
made by John Hewlett, famous DJ at KC95 for many, many years. I think he's retired now. I think he just retired. Also, the public announcer at Busch Stadium baseball games, Cardinal
Hmm.
baseball games. And it's a spoof on Moody Blues, uh, Nights in White Satin, but it's
Hmm.
Nights at White Castle, and is the
It's
most
so good.
brilliant, funniest song
It's so
in
good.
existence.
No.
Every time I listen to it, I giggle.
Hmm.
And I'm just shocked that more people don't know about it. I
Yeah.
mean, how is that not universally known? I don't know.
Hmm.
It's great.
It's
It's
very,
fantastic.
very good. Very, very good.
Because I can
Uh,
understand people not thinking Norm Macdonald funny, because he's kind of acerbic or whatever, but that is a universally funny thing.
mhm.
I agree.
Yes.
All right, let's
Um,
talk about some other universal concepts. We agree what
yes.
is universally humorous.
Yes, that's right. But then he says, essentially,
Only
well,
a dollar five or dollar nine.
dollar nine, yeah.
Dollar
Out
nine.
of 50 White Castles and a small Coke. Happy for here to go. Yeah. Oh, good. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, he just kind of keeps insulting Thrasymachus for a little bit. But he says, Thrasymachus' definition is he says, I say that justice or right is simply what is in the interest of the stronger party. He says, now
Mhm.
where's your praise? I can see you're going to refuse it. Where he's finally, agrees to give Socrates a definition. He's like, I know you're just going to, pull this thing to shreds, and I'm really not happy that I even gave you a definition. And that's when he brings up, for the first time, sort of different types of government, sort of laying the foundation for what we see later, where he says each type of government enacts laws that are in its own interest. This is Socrates talking. A democracy, democratic laws, a tyranny, tyrannical ones, and so on. And in enacting these laws, they make it quite plain that what is right for their subjects is what is in the interest of themselves, the rulers, and if anyone deviates from this, he is punished as a lawbreaker and wrongdoer. That is what I mean when I say that right is the same thing in all states, namely the interest of the established government. Sorry, I believe this might actually be Thrasymachus speaking. Um,
Nobody's paying attention anyway. Go
yeah,
ahead.
well, that's all right. And government is the stronger element in each state. So if we argue correctly that we see that right is always the same, the interest of the stronger party. So kind of making the point that you're making that it was like, well, it is an objective principle. It's just what is in the interest of the stronger party. And that's where
And,
Socrates.
and I want to be clear. I'm
Yes.
not espousing that theory.
Yes. No.
I'm
No. I
just
know what you mean.
disagreeing with you.
Yes. That's good. I'm glad.
Well, and I do like his, like Socrates starts using some analogies about, and then the role of the
Mhm.
rulers. And
Yes.
are they just supposed to be subjugating people, or is their role really to benefit the
Hmm.
people? The common good, I think, is part of this argument. And he uses the analogy of a shepherd. Isn't the
Hmm.
shepherd's role to protect the sheep, and there isn't really the ruler very similar to a shepherd and the people, the sheep, which is a little dehumanizing, but
Hmm.
all right, enticing. But then I think the response was, if I remember correctly, that well, the shepherd's business is to fatten the flock,
Hmm.
for harvest, or for shearing, or for butchering, I guess.
Right.
Um, so I mean, so basically, he makes the analogies that it's not just what's in the specific interest of the ruler. If a ruler is a just ruler, isn't it really what's in the interest of the people? Isn't that
Hmm.
what he's saying? No,
Yeah.
you're like,
No, you're right. I was looking because he makes other examples where he's talking about, doctors and ship's captains, where it's really
yes.
not in their interest. They're not, they're they work for a profit sometimes, but their point of their purpose, and this is really, what's developed much more by Aristotle, sort of the idea of teleology, what is the final cause? What is the purpose of these things? And where he says, well, a ship's captain isn't to make money. The ship's captain, his job is to steer the ship. Same thing for the doctor, right? His job, his purpose is to provide for the health of his patients, right? Same thing for the politician or for the ruler, statesman. You probably wouldn't use the word politician in the same way we use it. It's probably more accurate to say like a statesman, because politician, I think, has such negative connotations now. It's like, well, maybe they are just working for profit. But he's like, well, it should be for the good of the citizens, right? That is really what the purpose of the statesman is. And that's what the rulers ought to do. So it's if they're ruling justly, they are providing for their people rather than just for their own interest.
Yeah, and I think it's a good summary
Hmm.
of that part of the argument. But and I like this little thing where it's on page
Hmm.
29, 347C, where he says, um, I think this is Socrates talking. He says that is what I believe frightens honest men into accepting power, uh, and they approach it not as if it were something desirable, but out of which they were going to do well, but as if it were something unavoidable, because they cannot find anyone better or equally qualified to undertake it. Basically, the reluctant ruler
Hmm.
is the best kind of ruler,
Right.
because they're trying to do it for the betterment of everybody else, and they'll only do it reluctantly because it's
Hmm.
a sacrifice. It's a self-sacrifice, and if
Right.
that's the case, if that's the case, that the best ruler is a self-sacrificing ruler, then how do you say his name? Telemarketus. His theory.
Thrasymachus.
Yeah, his theory is blown to bits with that one
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
If that's what a just ruler is, that you're sacrificing your own good for the good of the people, well, then it's not just what's in the interest of the ruler. It's in fact the opposite.
Hmm.
And so Thrasymachus is saying that an unjust essentially comes down to the to claiming that the unjust ruler is superior to the just ruler in some ways because accumulating power, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
It pays better than
Right.
perfect. The perfect injustice pays better than perfect justice.
Hmm.
It's, therefore, it must be better. And of course, that's kind of turning everything on its head. And
Right.
uh, from what we're seeking for a
Right.
just
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
system.
where, yeah, this is where Thrasymachus kind of backs out
Yeah.
after this a little bit when he's replaced by Glaucon. And Glaucon and Adeimantus, who are the older brothers of Plato, actually, they are sort of then become the sole respondents throughout the rest of the dialogue after book one, where he asks, to introduce Glaucon. He says, which side are you on, Glaucon? Which of us seems to be nearer the truth? And that's when we get the point of, he says, I think the just man's life pays the better. And so we get into this idea of, well, is it beneficial to lead a just life, or is it more beneficial just to pursue injustice? And that's when, he talks about, turns back to Thrasymachus, sort of just introduces Glaucon briefly, where he says, really, he says, justice is supreme simplicity, is what Thrasymachus says. This is on page 31, if you're looking for it, section
Yeah, yeah,
348, just before D, where he says, really, you're just allowing yourself to be duped, essentially. Like, well, you can be a just man, but that just means that anyone who is unjust and is willing to use the system sort of over you, you're going to come out worse. That seems like it's essentially Thrasymachus' point,
yeah,
where the unjust person can just use the system, abuse it to gain power, and rule over you unjustly, and you will be much worse off. You should have been unjust so that you can just take advantage of the system yourself and make things better for yourself.
right.
Very utilitarian point that he's making, where even if he agrees with Socrates that it might be unjust to do these things, it's still better to be unjust because then you sort of profit. You have that more material benefit in some way.
Right. And then Socrates, I think, is making a very similar argument to, oh, I forget who was that coined the phrase, the tragedy of the commons. Like if you have a common resource, people are going to want to take more than what they need
Hmm.
and deplete the stores for everybody, because it's in your self-interest to have your share plus,
Hmm.
because if you don't do it, somebody else will do it. And then before you know it, nobody has enough.
Right.
Um, because he talks about, he says, was this 35? Maybe I'm going too far ahead, but he says, um, their prospect of success is greater if they don't wrong each other. He says, yes, it is. He says, because of course, if they wrong each other, that will breed hatred and dissension among them. But if they treat each other justly, there will be unity of purpose and friendly feeling among them.
Hmm.
And so I think that really contradicts that argument that you should do whatever it takes, just or unjust, or just if you have the power to take advantage of the situation, because then everybody else is going to do the same thing, and then it's a net negative.
Right. Right. Exactly. Um, Trying to see if there's really much more to describe on that specific point. There's a really important concept that comes up here just a little bit later. But yeah, about the unity, about people living justly, have that unity and purpose, and then that's sort of what leads to ultimate flourishing and things like that. Sort of the excellence there. But then this is really where this is how the editor divides it in section 4, where we start to see 357a, where Idiomatus and Glaucon really come in. And this is really, really important because they essentially try to take over and restate the case for injustice. And they kind of say, well, Thrasymachus didn't do too great against Socrates. We need somebody better to give a more nuanced argument and really describe things in a much better way.
But that
Um,
that's for next time, isn't it? That's book two. We're only supposed to read to book one, right?
Is that book 2? I think that's at least in book 1. Oh,
I'm on page 40, BK Roman numeral 2.
you are absolutely right. I was skipping ahead. The
I
author
am
has it
right
structured
again.
not by book, he has it by part. I didn't even realize that it was separated in that way. That's really weird. It should be separated by book in the main headings. But you're right. We will stop there. Um, Let me see.
I need to get an argument with your mother. I'm gonna roll.
Yeah, there you go. I will
Sit.
just read, since this is the end of book 1,
Yes.
um, Socrates' conclusion to book 1. He says,
Yes.
this is, well, Thrasymachus kind of has a quip at the end. He says, "This is your holiday treat," he replied. "So enjoy it, Socrates." Or he's
Yeah.
sort of, acquiescing to Socrates. He says, "If I do enjoy it, it's thanks to you, Thrasymachus," I replied. "For you have been most agreeable since you stopped being cross with me. But I'm not enjoying it all the same, and it's my own fault, not yours. I'm like a greedy guest who grabs a taste of the next course before he has properly finished the last. For we started off to inquire what justice is, but gave up before we had found the answer, and went on to ask whether it was excellence and knowledge or their opposites. And then we stumbled on the view that injustice pays better than justice. Instead of letting it alone, off we went in pursuit, so that I still know nothing after all discussion. For so long as I don't know what justice is, I'm hardly likely to find out whether it is an excellence or not, or whether it makes a man happy or unhappy." And so that's when we start to see, kind of giving a hint of what will be talked about next, of what justice truly is. We've kind of determined, being unjust does not necessarily make you happier, does not necessarily bring better benefits for you. We talked about human excellence and the skill, and what the sort of the job of the statesman should be, but we haven't really talked about exactly what justice is and how to achieve it.
Yes. And that's gonna be next episode.
Yes, so I apologize. I read ahead. I didn't even realize. I thought the parts
You are
of this
you
edition were mapped
are
to the books.
you are always an overachiever, Adam. I'm
Oh,
very
well,
proud.
that's true. Well,
You're
thank you.
excellence incarnate.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. You're pretty good.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
I'm, I'm partial though. I don't
Well,
think
that's true.
you're
Thank you.
right.
Well, do you have any other final thoughts on this debate here?
No.
Any thoughts
Do
about
you,
anything
do
else?
you, do you, well, I have thoughts about anything. What do you want
No,
to talk about? I got thoughts about everything.
that's all right. We don't need to go down whatever path that is.
All you got to do is point me slightly in any direction.
I know.
Go off into the sunset.
That's right. No, I mean I really enjoy this. I think it's. I'm glad we're reading this. I think that the discussion went well. Hopefully you keep enjoying it going forward.
Oh,
But I think this is a very very good dialogue. I think it's asking the exact same questions that we're still asking today. Of what does it mean
true.
to be just? Is it better just to abuse the system, or is it better to live a life of justice? What are the benefits from doing that? Does it make you
Yes.
worse? Does it make you better? But yeah,
It also makes you wonder, makes me wonder. I shouldn't say you. I don't know
mm,
what these people are wondering. Makes me wonder, has anybody actually had an original thought since
mm,
Plato? I mean, and Socrates and that group. I mean, and it's like these guys were living, 2,000 years ago.
yeah,
They didn't have electricity.
yeah.
They're fools. No, I mean, they knew more about the world than I did.
Yeah. I mean, it is a big problem, I think, in the modern day that, people aren't reading these things.
True.
Even philosophers kind of just say, well, we can just kind of start from nothing. And it's like, well, you have, 2,500 years of philosophy starting with Plato, where literally all of modern philosophy, Western philosophy, is in some way related back to Plato. Because I mean, that was Descartes' problem. I think Descartes
I
is
was about
responsible.
to say
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's Descartes' problem. That's I think Descartes' responsible for a lot of the bad philosophies we have today, somewhat indirectly. But he was like, well, I'm just going to kind of discover everything from first principles. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to rely on nothing but my own reason, and that's where we get this weird Cartesian dualism and things like that. So
The arrogance of Descartes. And I liked, when I was your age, I loved Descartes. I thought it was
really,
really brilliant
oh
because
yeah, Descartes terrible.
uh, you might think I'm a little arrogant now. I don't know if you get that sense. Some people get a
I
little
don't
sense of
I don't know
arrogance.
why. I don't know why they would.
I don't. I know they. I don't. I have no idea. I really don't actually. Um, but I admit I was arrogant in my
Yeah,
20s. Holy moly! And so
yeah.
that speaks to an arrogance. Oh well, I can do that. If he can do it, hell, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done it yet.
Mm. Well, you still have time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also had the blasphemous thought of starting my own religion. Um, but that was more of a, like an aborted, not aborted meaning before it was really conceived.
Right.
Idea of a scam. That'd be an easy way to make a
Mm,
living.
that's
But I
true.
don't think it would be that easy. Um, I think you're chasing, like when you commit fraud and it's like it snowballs. I just think they must be miserable.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
have all this money, but at any day it can come crashing down.
Mm.
It's a horrible way to live.
Which, relating to the discussion on justice, if you do just live unjustly and make a lot of money, are you ever going to be secure in that money? Because somebody just as unjust could come up and take it all from you.
Or just,
Or just, yeah, that's true.
because
Yeah,
they're going to get it from anybody.
that's true.
A just person that finds out about it, you're wiped out. An
Yeah,
unjust person, you're wiped out. It's
right,
like subject to blackmail.
right,
It's crazy.
right, right.
Bad, bad. Don't do it.
Yes.
It's better to be barely scraping by honestly than to be comfortably wealthy and not have earned it.
Yeah, very true.
100%.
Very true.
Mm.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end season 13, episode 2. Oh,
Words of wisdom.
Words of Wisdom, yes, of Unlimited Opinions. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at ULMTD Opinions. I have been Adam Bishop.
I am still the arrogant Archbishop.